If you're a woman over 65 living alone, society has probably told you 1,000 times that you should be worried, that you should be scared, that you need someone to take care of you. But what if everything you've been told is wrong? What if living alone isn't your weakness, but actually your greatest superpower? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will completely change how you see your independence, your strength, and your life. This isn't about sugarcoating reality. This is about the brutal, honest truth that nobody wants to tell you, but that you absolutely need to hear. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, you've just found a space where we talk about real psychology, real empowerment, and real truth for women who refuse to be defined by society's limitations. I'm here to give you the insights and tools you need to live your most powerful life, regardless of your age or circumstances. Before we dive deep into today's topic, I want to ask you for a small favor that makes a huge difference. If you find value in this video, please hit that like button. It tells YouTube that this content matters and helps us reach more women who need to hear this message. Drop a comment below sharing your experience with living alone or your thoughts on independence. Your voice matters, and I read every single comment. If this video resonates with you, share it with other women in your life who need this empowerment. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss content designed specifically to help you thrive. And if you really want to support what we're doing here, consider leaving a super thanks. It directly helps us create more content like this and keeps this channel growing strong. Your support means everything. Now, let's talk about something that society desperately wants to keep quiet. Let's talk about why being a senior woman living alone isn't the tragedy everyone makes it out to be. Let's talk about why your independence isn't just okay, it's actually your superpower. Let's start with the brutal reality that nobody wants to discuss. When you're a woman over 65 living alone, society looks at you with pity. They see you as vulnerable, as lonely, as someone who has somehow failed at the game of life because you don't have a partner or you don't live with family. They assume you're isolated, scared, and counting down the days until something terrible happens. They whisper behind your back about how sad it must be, how worried they are about you, how someone should really do something. But here's what they don't understand. Here's what they refuse to see. Living alone as a senior woman isn't a weakness. It's a declaration of strength. It's proof that you've survived everything life has thrown at you and you're still standing. It's evidence that you've developed the skills, the resilience, and the self-sufficiency that most people never achieve in their entire lifetime. Your independence isn't something to pity, it's something to celebrate. Think about what it actually takes to live alone successfully at any age, but especially after 65. It requires financial management skills that many people never develop. You need to handle your own budget, pay your bills, manage your savings and investments, navigate healthcare costs, and make smart decisions about your resources. You need to maintain a home, which means dealing with repairs, keeping things clean and organized, managing maintenance schedules, and solving problems as they arise. You need emotional resilience to handle solitude without falling into depression or despair. You need physical capability to take care of your daily needs. You need mental sharpness to stay organized and keep track of everything. You need social skills to maintain connections and build new relationships on your own terms. That's not weakness. That's a masterclass in life skills. That's competence at the highest level. Most people can't do what you do every single day. Most people would fall apart without someone else to lean on, but you've proven that you can carry your own weight and then some. You've proven that you're capable, strong, and completely self-sufficient. Let's dig deeper into why society is so threatened by independent senior women. This isn't an accident. This isn't just innocent concern. There are powerful psychological and social reasons why your independence makes people uncomfortable, and understanding these reasons is crucial to protecting your peace and maintaining your power. First, your independence challenges the traditional narrative about aging and femininity. Society has spent centuries teaching women that their value comes from taking care of others, from being needed, from sacrificing themselves for family. The traditional life script for women goes something like this. You get married, you have children, you devote your life to your family, and then, in your golden years, your children take care of you, or your spouse grows old with you. That's supposed to be the reward for all that sacrifice. That's supposed to be the happy ending. But what happens when a woman reaches her senior years and she's living independently? What happens when she's not relying on children or a spouse? What happens when she's completely self-sufficient? It breaks the entire narrative. It suggests that maybe women don't need the traditional life script. Maybe women can be complete and fulfilled without being defined by their relationships to others. Maybe a woman's value doesn't come from how much she sacrifices or how much she's needed. Maybe a woman can be powerful standing completely alone. This terrifies people who have built their entire worldview around traditional gender roles and family structures. Your independence is living proof that the old rules don't apply anymore. You're showing the world that a woman can thrive without fitting into the boxes society tries to force on us. And that makes people deeply uncomfortable because it challenges everything they believe about how life is supposed to work. Second, your independence threatens adult children who feel guilty. This is a big one that nobody wants to talk about. Many adult children have been taught that they're supposed to take care of their aging parents. They've been told that good children help their parents, that family takes care of family, that you owe your parents for raising you. But here's the reality. Many adult children don't actually want the responsibility of caring for aging parents. They have their own lives, their own families, their own problems. Taking care of a parent is expensive, time-consuming, emotionally draining, and complicated. When you live independently and don't need their help, it should be a relief. But instead, many adult children feel guilty. They feel like they're failing some unspoken obligation. They worry about what other people think. They imagine that others are judging them for not taking care of mom. So instead of being grateful for your independence, they sometimes try to undermine it. They point out every little thing you struggle with. They exaggerate concerns about your safety or health. They suggest that you can't really manage on your own, not because they actually want to help, but because making you seem more vulnerable makes them feel better about not helping. It lets them play the role of the concerned child without actually having to make any sacrifices. Your independence holds up a mirror to their guilt and their hypocrisy. You're showing them that you don't need them, which means they can't use you as an excuse for their own choices or as a way to feel important. That's threatening to their ego and their self-image. Third, your independence challenges ageist assumptions about capability and worth. Our society is deeply ageist, especially toward women. There's this pervasive belief that once you reach a certain age, you become less capable, less valuable, less relevant. People assume that senior citizens are confused, fragile, helpless, and stuck in the past. They talk down to you. They make decisions for you. They act like your opinions don't matter because you're old and you don't understand the modern world. Every single day that you live independently and successfully, you're proving those assumptions wrong. You're showing that age doesn't equal incompetence. You're demonstrating that senior women are capable, sharp, and fully able to manage their own lives. You're living evidence that the ageist stereotypes are lies. And people don't like having their prejudices challenged. They don't like being proven wrong. So they double down. They look for ways to confirm their biases. They point out your struggles while ignoring your successes. They remember the one time you asked for help, but forget the 1,000 times you handled everything yourself. Your independence is a threat to ageism itself, and that makes you a target for people who benefit from keeping senior citizens marginalized and disempowered. Fourth, your independence represents freedom that others don't have. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Many people are trapped in relationships, living situations, or family dynamics that make them miserable. They stay in unhappy marriages because they're financially dependent or scared of being alone. They live with family members they can't stand because they can't afford to live independently. They make compromises every single day that slowly erode their sense of self. They've given up so much of themselves to maintain relationships or meet obligations that they barely recognize who they are anymore. And then they see you, living alone, making your own choices, answering to nobody, spending your time however you want, organizing your space exactly the way you like it, going to bed and waking up on your own schedule, having complete autonomy over your life. They see that freedom, and it makes them painfully aware of their own lack of freedom. It makes them question the sacrifices they've made. It makes them wonder if they've wasted years of their life tolerating things they shouldn't have tolerated. That realization is painful. And instead of using it as motivation to change their own lives, many people respond by attacking yours. They convince themselves that you must be lonely, that you must be suffering, that your freedom must come with some terrible price. Because if your independence actually makes you happy and fulfilled, then what does that say about their own choices? What does that say about all the years they spent being miserable for the sake of not being alone? Your independence holds up a mirror to their regrets and their trapped situations, and that's threatening enough that they'd rather tear you down than face their own reality. Now let's talk about the actual realities of living alone as a senior woman. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend it's all sunshine and roses. Living alone comes with real challenges, and acknowledging those challenges is part of being empowered. Empowerment isn't about denying difficulties, it's about facing them head-on and finding ways to overcome them. The first major challenge is practical safety and emergency concerns. When you live alone, there's nobody to help if you fall, if you have a medical emergency, if something breaks in the middle of the night, if you face a dangerous situation. You're your own first responder. This is a legitimate concern, and it's one of the main things that other people bring up when they worry about senior women living alone. But here's what they don't tell you. There are concrete solutions to these concerns. Technology has created tools specifically designed to help people who live alone stay safe. Medical alert systems can detect falls and automatically call for help. Video doorbells let you see who's at your door without opening it. Smart home devices can remind you to take medication, turn off the stove, or lock the doors. Emergency contact lists and regular check-in systems with friends or neighbors can ensure someone notices if something is wrong. Beyond technology, you can build a safety network. This doesn't mean giving up your independence. It means creating systems that support your independence. Have a neighbor you check in with daily. Join a community group where people notice if you're not around. Keep a list of emergency contacts in multiple places. Learn basic first aid and emergency response. Take fall prevention seriously by removing hazards from your home and staying physically active to maintain balance and strength. The key is being proactive rather than reactive. Don't wait for an emergency to figure out your system. Set it up now while you're capable and thinking clearly. And here's the thing. People who live with others face emergencies too. Living with someone doesn't guarantee safety. Plenty of people have medical emergencies or accidents even with others in the house. The difference is that you've taken responsibility for your own safety instead of assuming someone else will handle it. That's not a weakness. That's wisdom. The second challenge is emotional. Dealing with loneliness and isolation. This is the one everyone focuses on. They assume that living alone automatically equals being lonely. But here's what research actually shows. Loneliness and being alone are not the same thing. You can be surrounded by people and feel desperately lonely. You can live alone and feel deeply connected and fulfilled. The quality of your relationships matters far more than your living situation. Many women who live alone report feeling less lonely than they did in unsatisfying marriages or complicated family situations. They've discovered that solitude and loneliness are completely different experiences. Solitude is chosen, it's peaceful, it's space to breathe and think and be yourself, without performance or compromise. Loneliness is the painful feeling that you lack meaningful connection. You can experience solitude without loneliness. You can experience loneliness without solitude. The real question isn't whether you live alone. The real question is whether you have meaningful connections in your life. Do you have people you can talk to honestly? Do you have friends who genuinely care about you? Do you engage with your community in ways that matter to you? Do you have activities that bring you joy and put you in contact with others? These factors determine whether you feel lonely, not whether someone sleeps in your house. Many senior women living alone have rich social lives. They volunteer, they take classes, they're part of clubs or religious communities. They maintain deep friendships. They're connected through phone calls, video chats, and social media with people who matter to them. They've learned to actively cultivate connection rather than passively, waiting for it to appear. They've discovered that quality trumps quantity every single time. And here's something nobody talks about. Living alone gives you the energy and space to build better relationships. When you're not exhausted by living with someone who drains you, you have more to give to friendships and community. When you're not walking on eggshells or managing someone else's emotions, you can show up as your authentic self. When your home is your sanctuary rather than a battlefield or obligation, you can invite people in with genuine warmth. Your independence doesn't isolate you. It positions you to build the kinds of connections you actually want rather than settling for whatever proximity provides. The third challenge is financial. This is the most practical and often the most stressful aspect of living alone as a senior woman. Housing costs, healthcare expenses, daily living needs, and unexpected emergencies all fall entirely on your shoulders. There's no second income to fall back on. There's no partner to split costs with. If something goes wrong financially, you have to solve it yourself. This is real, and this is hard. Women of your generation often face particular financial challenges. Many spent years out of the workforce raising children, which means smaller Social Security benefits and fewer retirement savings. Lifetime earnings were lower due to the wage gap. Pensions are rare. Some women find themselves financially vulnerable after divorce or widowhood, especially if their partner controlled the finances during the relationship. But here's what you need to understand. Living alone doesn't create financial problems, it reveals them. If you're struggling financially while living alone, you'd likely still struggle with those same issues in a different living situation. The problem isn't your independence. The problem is systemic inequality, inadequate social support systems, and economic structures that disadvantage senior citizens, especially women. And despite these challenges, many women living alone are managing their finances successfully. They've learned to budget carefully. They've found ways to reduce expenses without sacrificing quality of life. They take advantage of senior discounts, community resources, and programs designed to help. They make smart decisions about housing, whether that means downsizing, finding affordable areas, or creatively approaching home ownership. They stay informed about their benefits and make sure they're getting everything they're entitled to. Financial independence is a skill, and you can develop it at any age. If you're struggling, there are resources available. Financial counselors, community organizations, government programs, and nonprofit groups exist specifically to help senior citizens manage their finances. Reaching out for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of intelligence. The goal isn't perfection, the goal is sustainability. Can you meet your basic needs? Can you handle normal expenses? Do you have some cushion for emergencies? If the answer is yes, then you're doing fine. If the answer is no, then you need to take action, but that action is about solving the specific financial problems, not about giving up your independence. The fourth challenge is physical, managing your home and your health without assistance. As we age, some tasks become more difficult. Heavy lifting, climbing ladders, extensive cleaning, yard work, home repairs, and even basic maintenance can become challenging. Health issues can make it harder to manage daily activities. Mobility problems can limit what you can do. These are real concerns that you can't just ignore or wish away. But again, there are practical solutions. You don't have to do everything yourself to live independently. Independence doesn't mean refusing all help. It means maintaining control over your life and your choices. Hiring help for specific tasks isn't giving up your independence. It's exercising your independence by making smart decisions about how to use your resources. Getting someone to help with heavy cleaning, yard work, or home repairs means you're solving problems rather than letting them overwhelm you. Adapting your space to your needs is also intelligent independence. Installing grab bars, improving lighting, removing tripping hazards, organizing for easy access, and making your home safer and more comfortable isn't admitting defeat. It's taking charge of your environment. It's making your home work for you instead of against you. Some of the most independent people are those who are honest about their limitations and creative about working around them. Regarding health management, living alone actually forces you to be more attentive to your health rather than less. You can't rely on someone else to notice problems or schedule appointments. You have to be proactive. You have to pay attention to your body. You have to take your health seriously because you're responsible for it. Many people living with others become complacent about their health because they assume someone else is watching out for them. You don't have that luxury, which means you're more likely to catch problems early and take action. You can create systems that support your health while living alone. Keep a medication schedule and stick to it. Maintain regular appointments with healthcare providers. Stay physically active in ways that work for your body. Eat well because you're choosing your own food. Get enough sleep because nobody is disrupting it. Build relationships with your medical team so they know you and your needs. These habits don't require living with someone. They require taking responsibility, which is something you're clearly capable of doing. The fifth challenge is social perception and judgment. This might not seem as concrete as the other challenges, but it can be emotionally exhausting. Constantly facing people's pity, concern, nosiness, and judgment wears you down over time. Dealing with people who assume you must be lonely, who treat you like you're helpless, who suggest you'd be better off in assisted living or with family, who question your choices and your capability, all of this creates a constant stream of negativity that you have to defend against. This is particularly frustrating because there's often no winning. If you're thriving and happy living alone, people don't believe you. They think you're putting on a brave face or in denial. If you admit any struggles at all, they jump on it as proof that you can't manage and need to change your situation. If you're too independent, you're stubborn or prideful. If you ask for help with anything, you're proving that you can't handle living alone. The goalposts constantly shift, and no matter what you do, someone has an opinion about how you should be living differently. The solution to this challenge isn't changing your living situation, it's changing your relationship with other people's opinions. You need to develop what I call psychological boundaries. These are the mental and emotional limits you set on how much other people's judgments affect you. Strong psychological boundaries mean you can hear someone's opinion, consider whether it has any validity, and then either take it on board or dismiss it entirely based on your own evaluation. Most people have weak psychological boundaries when it comes to social judgment. They internalize every criticism. They feel guilty when others express concern. They doubt themselves when faced with disapproval. They change their behavior to avoid negative reactions from others. This is exhausting, and it hands control of your life over to people who don't actually have to live with the consequences of your choices. Building strong psychological boundaries means recognizing that other people's comfort with your choices is not your responsibility. Their anxiety about your independence doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your independence. It means they have anxiety. That's their problem to solve, not yours. You can be kind and reassuring to a point, but you don't owe anyone justification for living your life in a way that works for you. Practice phrases like, "I appreciate your concern, but I'm managing well. This is what works for me. I'm happy with my current situation. I'll reach out if I need help." You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to prove anything. You can simply state your position and then disengage from the conversation. You can let people be uncomfortable with your choices. That's allowed. Their discomfort doesn't require you to change anything. Over time, most people will either accept your independence or learn to keep their opinions to themselves. The ones who don't aren't worth your emotional energy. You can limit contact with people who constantly judge or criticize. You can surround yourself with people who respect your autonomy. You can build a social circle that supports rather than undermines you. Your independence gives you the freedom to be selective about who gets access to your life and your peace of mind. Now, let's shift to the empowering side of this equation. Let's talk about why living alone is genuinely a superpower and not just something you're coping with or surviving. Let's talk about the actual benefits and strengths that come with independent living in your senior years. The first superpower is complete autonomy over your environment and your schedule. Your home is entirely yours. Every decision about how it looks, how it's organized, how it functions, and how it feels is under your control. You don't have to compromise on temperature, lighting, noise levels, decor, cleanliness standards, or anything else. If you want your living room painted purple, you paint it purple. If you want to eat dinner at 3 in the afternoon or 11 at night, that's your choice. If you want to stay up late reading or go to bed at 8, nobody's stopping you. This might sound trivial, but it's actually profound. Having complete control over your personal space and time means you can create an environment that supports your well-being exactly as you need it. You can set up your home to make your life easier. You can establish routines that work for your body and your preferences. You can prioritize what matters to you without negotiating or justifying your choices. Think about how much energy people waste in shared living situations, trying to compromise, accommodate, or argue about basic daily decisions. Should the house be warmer or cooler? How clean is clean enough? When should meals happen? How should money be spent? What should we watch on television? Where should furniture go? These constant negotiations are exhausting, and they rarely result in anyone being truly happy. Everyone ends up compromising, which means everyone ends up with less than what they actually want. Living alone eliminates all of that. You get exactly what you want because you're the only person whose preferences matter in your space. This isn't selfish. This is the reward for decades of compromising, accommodating, and putting others first. This is your time to prioritize yourself without guilt or apology. You've earned this autonomy, and exercising it is a form of self-care and self-respect. The second superpower is emotional independence and peace. Living alone means you're not managing anyone else's emotions, moods, or problems on a daily basis. You're not walking on eggshells around someone's temper. You're not being dragged down by someone else's depression or anxiety. You're not serving as a free therapist for someone who refuses to deal with their issues. You're not absorbing someone else's stress and making it your own. This emotional independence is incredibly valuable for your mental health. You get to wake up and respond to your own feelings rather than immediately having to deal with someone else's. You can have a bad day without someone taking it personally or making it worse. You can have a good day without someone raining on your parade. Your emotional energy is yours to direct, rather than being constantly drained by the needs and demands of others. Many women spend their entire lives as emotional caretakers. They manage their children's feelings, their partner's moods, their aging parents' fears, their friends' dramas. They become experts at reading the room, anticipating needs, diffusing tension, and keeping everyone else comfortable. It's exhausting work that's rarely recognized or appreciated. Living alone gives you a break from all of that. You can just be. You can feel what you feel without having to perform or manage. You can focus on your own emotional well-being without guilt. This doesn't mean you become cold or uncaring. You can still be supportive of people you love, but there's a huge difference between choosing to offer support in specific situations and being trapped in a 24/7 emotional management role. Living alone lets you set boundaries around your emotional labor. You can give from a place of abundance rather than obligation. You can be there for others because you want to, not because you have to. That shift makes your relationships healthier and more genuine. The third superpower is financial clarity and control. When you live alone, you know exactly where your money is going. There's no mystery spending. Nobody is making purchases without your knowledge. You're not subsidizing someone else's poor financial decisions. You're not arguing about money or discovering financial problems that someone else created. Your financial situation might be tight, but at least it's transparent and under your control. This clarity allows you to make better financial decisions. You can budget accurately because you know your actual expenses. You can plan for the future because you're not dealing with financial surprises. You can prioritize your spending based on what actually matters to you. If you want to spend money on something that brings you joy, you can do it without justifying it to anyone. If you need to cut expenses, you can make those choices strategically based on your own values and needs. Financial independence also protects you from financial abuse, which is more common than most people realize. Many senior citizens face financial exploitation from family members, partners, or caregivers. People pressure them for money, take control of their accounts, make unauthorized purchases, or manipulate them into funding someone else's lifestyle. Living independently and maintaining control of your finances makes you much harder to exploit. You're in the best position to protect your assets and make sure your money is used for your benefit. You can work with financial advisors, lawyers, and accountants who answer to you alone. You can make decisions about your estate, your investments, and your resources based on your wishes rather than someone else's agenda. This level of financial autonomy is powerful protection against being taken advantage of. The fourth superpower is the freedom to evolve and reinvent yourself. Throughout most of your life, you've probably been defined by your relationships and roles. You were someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's employee. Your identity was largely shaped by how you related to others and what others needed from you. These roles often came with expectations about how you should behave, what you should want, and who you should be. Living alone in your senior years gives you the freedom to figure out who you actually are when you're not performing a role for someone else. You can explore interests that nobody else shares. You can change your opinions without someone telling you you're being inconsistent. You can try new things without judgment. You can be weird, quirky, creative, or unconventional in ways that wouldn't be acceptable if you were living with others who expect you to behave a certain way. This is the time to discover or rediscover yourself. Who are you when nobody is watching? What do you actually enjoy rather than what you've been told you should enjoy? What matters to you when you're not worried about pleasing or impressing others? What kind of person do you want to be in this chapter of your life? Living alone gives you the space to explore these questions honestly. Many women discover incredible things about themselves once they're living independently. They find hidden talents. They develop new passions. They realize they're interested in things they never had time or permission to pursue. They become more authentically themselves than they've ever been. This isn't about becoming a completely different person. It's about shedding the layers of performance and expectation that have accumulated over decades and getting back to your core self. The fifth superpower is control over your relationships. When you live alone, every relationship in your life is there because you choose it. You're not stuck dealing with difficult people just because you share a living space. You're not trapped in toxic dynamics because of proximity or obligation. You can set boundaries without having to enforce them every single day. You can decide who gets your time, your energy, and your presence. This selectivity makes your relationships better. Think about it. The people you spend time with are people you actually want to see. Your interactions aren't diluted by obligation or proximity. When you're with someone, it's because you chose to be with them, which makes the time more meaningful. You're not just tolerating people or going through the motions. You're actively engaging with people who add value to your life. You also have the power to limit or eliminate relationships that don't serve you. That judgmental family member who always criticizes your choices, you can see them once a year at holidays and keep your distance the rest of the time. That friend who constantly complains but never takes advice, you can set limits on how much time you give to that relationship. That person who always needs something but never reciprocates, you can say no without feeling guilty because maintaining the relationship isn't necessary for your daily survival. Living alone means you're not dependent on any single relationship for your basic functioning. You're not staying with a partner because you need help with bills. You're not tolerating a difficult roommate because you need to split rent. You're not putting up with family drama because you live in someone's house. Your independence gives you the freedom to have relationships on your terms or not at all. That's real power. The sixth superpower is peace and reduced conflict. Let's be honest, living with other people creates conflict. Even in the best relationships, there are disagreements, misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and tension. In difficult relationships, there's constant drama, fighting, manipulation, and stress. Living alone eliminates almost all of this conflict from your daily life. Your home is peaceful because there's nobody there to create chaos. You're not dealing with someone else's bad day. You're not getting dragged into arguments. You're not having to defend yourself or explain yourself or justify yourself constantly. You're not negotiating or compromising on things that shouldn't require negotiation. You're just living your life in peace. This peace has real health benefits. Chronic stress and conflict are terrible for your physical and mental health. They raise your blood pressure, weaken your immune system, disrupt your sleep, and contribute to depression and anxiety. They accelerate aging and increase the risk of serious health problems. Reducing conflict and stress in your daily life is one of the best things you can do for your overall well-being. Many women don't realize how much stress they're under from living with difficult people until they experience the peace of living alone. They discover that they sleep better, they feel calmer, they enjoy their days more, they have more energy, they're genuinely happier. This isn't because they're lonely or isolated. It's because they've removed a major source of stress from their lives. That's not something to feel guilty about. That's something to celebrate. The seventh superpower is the development of deep self-reliance. Living alone forces you to develop skills and capabilities that you might never have gained otherwise. You become your own problem solver, your own decision maker, your own support system. This builds a kind of confidence and self-trust that's incredibly valuable. When you successfully navigate challenges on your own, you prove to yourself that you're capable. Every problem you solve, every decision you make, every obstacle you overcome reinforces your belief in yourself. Over time, this creates a deep sense of self-efficacy. You know you can handle things because you've been handling things. You don't need someone else to rescue you or validate you or tell you what to do. You've got this. This self-reliance is attractive to others and empowering for you. People respect competence. When you demonstrate that you can manage your life effectively, people take you more seriously. They're less likely to dismiss your opinions or try to make decisions for you. They see you as a capable adult rather than someone who needs to be taken care of. And more importantly, you see yourself that way. Self-reliance also protects you from desperation. You're not tolerating bad relationships because you think you need someone. You're not accepting help that comes with strings attached because you think you can't manage alone. You're not making decisions based on fear of being by yourself. You're operating from a position of strength rather than weakness. You can make choices based on what you actually want rather than what you think you need to survive. The eighth superpower is the gift of time and attention for what actually matters to you. Living alone means you're not spending hours every day managing household dynamics, having pointless conversations, or doing things purely to keep the peace or meet someone else's needs. All that time and energy becomes available for things that actually enhance your life. You can pursue hobbies and interests without having to justify why they matter or make time for them around someone else's schedule. You can read, create art, garden, learn new skills, volunteer, travel, or whatever else brings you joy. You can invest in friendships that nourish you. You can engage with your community in meaningful ways. You can work on personal projects that have been sitting on the back burner for decades. You can finally write that book, learn that language, take that class, or start that business you've been thinking about. Many women report that living alone in their senior years is when they finally have time to focus on themselves without guilt. They're not raising children or managing a household for a partner. They're not working full-time jobs. They've fulfilled the major obligations that consumed most of their lives. This is their time. And living alone ensures that time actually belongs to them rather than being claimed by someone else's needs and demands. This isn't selfish. This is the natural progression of a well-lived life. You've spent decades taking care of others. You've fulfilled your obligations. Now it's your turn to focus on yourself, to pursue what matters to you, to live according to your own values and desires. That's not selfishness. That's balance. That's justice. That's you finally getting your share of attention and resources after giving so much to others for so long. The ninth superpower is resilience that comes from facing challenges directly. Living alone means you can't avoid difficult situations. You have to deal with them head-on because there's nobody else to handle them for you. This builds a particular kind of mental toughness and resilience that serves you well in all areas of life. Think about how much people grow when they're forced to handle things independently. Young adults who move out on their own develop capabilities they never would have gained living with parents. People who survive divorce or the death of a spouse often discover strength they didn't know they had. Facing challenges builds character, competence, and confidence in ways that being protected or rescued never can. Living alone keeps you sharp because you can't afford to become passive or helpless. You have to stay engaged with life. You have to keep learning, adapting, and problem-solving. This active engagement with life's challenges is actually protective against cognitive decline. It keeps your brain active and your skills current. It prevents the learned helplessness that can develop when other people do everything for you. Many women who live alone report feeling mentally sharper and more capable than friends or family members who have always had someone else to rely on. They haven't fallen into the trap of letting someone else handle everything. They've maintained their skills and even developed new ones. They're proof that the use it or lose it principle applies to independence just as much as it applies to physical and mental abilities. The 10th superpower is the ability to model independence for younger generations. Whether you realize it or not, your independent living is making a statement and setting an example. Younger women in your family and community see you living successfully on your own. They see that it's possible to be independent at any age. They see that you don't have to be afraid of being alone. They see that a woman can be complete and fulfilled without being defined by relationships to others. This matters enormously. So many young women grow up believing they need a partner to be complete. They're terrified of being alone. They stay in bad relationships because they think being single is worse than being unhappy. They make life choices based on fear of ending up alone. Seeing a senior woman living independently and thriving challenges these beliefs. It shows them a different possibility. You're also showing younger generations that aging doesn't mean becoming helpless or irrelevant. You're demonstrating that senior women can be capable, independent, and living life on their own terms. This fights ageist stereotypes and creates a more empowering vision of what aging can look like. The example you set today influences how younger generations think about their own futures. That's a legacy worth creating. Now let's address some of the myths and misconceptions that people spread about women living alone in their senior years. These myths are pervasive, and they do real damage by making women doubt themselves and by giving others ammunition to pressure women into living situations they don't want. Myth number 1, living alone means you're lonely and isolated. We've already addressed this, but it bears repeating because it's the most common assumption people make. There's no automatic connection between living alone and feeling lonely. Research consistently shows that loneliness is about the quality of your relationships, not your living situation. You can be desperately lonely in a house full of people if those relationships are superficial or toxic. You can feel deeply connected while living alone if you have meaningful friendships and community ties. Many women who live alone are actually less lonely than they were when living with others. They've learned to actively cultivate connection rather than passively hoping that sharing space with someone will magically create intimacy. They've built friend networks, community involvement, and regular social activities that provide genuine connection. They talk to people they actually want to talk to rather than being stuck with whoever shares their living space. The myth persists because people confuse being alone with loneliness. They can't imagine enjoying their own company or finding fulfillment outside of constant contact with others. That says more about their discomfort with solitude than it does about the reality of independent living. Just because someone else would feel lonely living alone doesn't mean you do. Just because they need constant company doesn't mean you do. Your experience is valid regardless of whether it matches their expectations. Myth number 2, living alone is unsafe and dangerous. People love to bring up worst-case scenarios. What if you fall? What if you have a medical emergency? What if someone breaks in? What if something goes wrong and there's nobody there to help? These concerns aren't completely baseless, but they're massively overblown and they ignore the many safety measures that independent people put in place. First, living with someone doesn't guarantee safety. People have medical emergencies with others present. Falls and accidents happen in shared living situations. Home invasions occur whether you live alone or with others. The presence of another person provides some additional safety, but it's not the difference between complete safety and total danger that people make it out to be. Second, independent living forces you to be proactive about safety in ways that people who rely on others often aren't. You're more likely to have emergency systems in place. You're more likely to take precautions. You're more likely to have a plan. People who assume someone else will handle safety often don't think about it at all until it's too late. Third, technology and community connections provide safety nets that can rival or exceed what shared living offers. Medical alert systems, regular check-ins with friends or neighbors, home security systems, and strong community ties create multiple layers of safety. You're not as isolated or unprotected as people imagine. The safety myth is often used to scare women into giving up their independence. Don't fall for it. Take reasonable precautions, create safety systems that work for you, and then refuse to live in fear of unlikely worst-case scenarios. Life involves risk no matter how you live. Living alone doesn't make you dramatically more vulnerable than any other living situation. Myth number 3. Living alone is selfish and means you don't value family. This myth is particularly insidious because it uses guilt to undermine your choices. The implication is that good, loving people live with family, and if you choose to live alone, you must not care about them. This is manipulation, pure and simple. Living alone doesn't mean you don't love your family or value your relationships. It means you've chosen a living arrangement that works for you. That's allowed. You can love people deeply and still not want to live with them. You can be close with family while maintaining your own space. Quality time together is often better when you have your own place to retreat to. Many families actually get along better when they don't share a home because the constant proximity doesn't breed resentment and conflict. The expectation that senior parents should live with adult children is cultural, not universal. Many cultures don't have this expectation, and even in cultures that do, the expectation often causes more problems than it solves. Multi-generational living can be wonderful when everyone genuinely wants it and the situation works well, but forcing it because of guilt or obligation leads to resentment, stress, and damaged relationships. You're not selfish for wanting your own space and your own life. You're not a bad mother or grandmother because you don't want to live with your adult children. You're not abandoning your family by maintaining independence. These are manipulative narratives designed to make you feel guilty for prioritizing your own well-being. Don't internalize them. Myth number 4. Living alone means you've failed at relationships or couldn't find someone. This myth is based on the assumption that coupled living is the default success state and anything else represents failure. It completely ignores the reality that many women are living alone by choice after being widowed or divorced, or because they've simply decided they prefer it. Being alone isn't a consolation prize. It's not what you settle for when you can't find a partner. For many women, it's the preferred state. They've been in relationships. They've done the marriage thing, raised the kids, fulfilled the traditional life script. Now they're choosing something different because it serves them better. That's not failure, that's evolution. Even women who would prefer to have a partner but haven't found the right one aren't failures. Being selective about who you share your life with shows self-respect, not desperation. Choosing to be alone rather than settling for someone who doesn't enhance your life is wisdom, not failure. The idea that any relationship is better than no relationship is toxic and leads people into situations that damage their well-being. Your worth as a person has nothing to do with your relationship status. You're not more valuable because you have a partner. You're not less valuable because you're alone. Your value is inherent and unchanging. Anyone who tries to make you feel like you've failed because you're single is revealing their own insecurities and limited worldview. not stating some objective truth about your life. Myth number 5. Senior women living alone need to be taken care of or rescued. This is pure ageism dressed up as concern. The assumption is that once you reach a certain age, you automatically become helpless and need someone to manage your life for you. This completely dismisses your capability, your intelligence, and your right to make your own decisions. Unless you're dealing with serious cognitive decline or significant disability that genuinely impairs your judgment and functioning, you're perfectly capable of managing your own life. Other people's anxiety about your independence doesn't mean you actually need to be rescued. Their discomfort with your choices doesn't mean your choices are wrong. Their need to feel important by taking care of you doesn't create an actual need on your part to be taken care of. This myth is particularly dangerous because it's often used to justify taking control away from senior women. Family members or even professionals sometimes use concern as an excuse to make decisions without consulting the woman involved. They move her into assisted living against her wishes. They take over her finances. They treat her like a child who can't be trusted to know what's best for herself. This isn't care, this is control, and it's often driven more by what's convenient for others than what's actually best for the woman herself. You get to decide when and if you need help. You get to choose what kind of help you want and who provides it. You get to maintain control over your life unless you're genuinely incapable of making safe decisions for yourself. And even then, you deserve to be involved in the decision-making process as much as possible. Nobody should be making choices for you just because they think they know better or because your independence makes them uncomfortable. Let's talk about how to protect and maintain your independence while living alone. This isn't about defending yourself against every criticism or proving yourself to every doubter. It's about creating sustainable systems that support your well-being and your autonomy over the long term. First, build a strong support network that respects your independence. This seems contradictory, but it's not. A good support network doesn't undermine your autonomy, it reinforces it. The key is being selective about who's in your network and what role they play. Look for people who respect your choices, even when they don't fully understand them. Look for people who offer help without attaching strings or expectations. Look for people who treat you as a capable adult rather than someone who needs to be managed. Look for people who celebrate your independence rather than seeing it as a problem to solve. Your support network might include friends who check in regularly just to say, "Hi," neighbors who you have a friendly relationship with, family members who respect boundaries, professionals like your doctor or financial advisor who you trust, and community connections through groups or organizations you're involved with. The goal is to have people you can call on if needed, without being dependent on any single person or feeling obligated to justify your independence to them. Be proactive about maintaining these connections. Don't wait until you need something to reach out. Regular contact keeps relationships strong and makes it easier to ask for help when you need it. But keep the focus on genuine connection rather than creating situations where people feel like they need to take care of you. You want mutual relationships where you're both giving and receiving, not dynamics where you're positioned as the needy one. Second, invest in systems and tools that make independent living easier. This isn't admitting weakness. It's being smart about using available resources to support your lifestyle. Technology can be a huge help. Medical alert devices give you peace of mind about emergencies. Smart home systems can automate tasks and provide reminders. Video doorbells let you screen visitors safely. Online shopping and delivery services reduce the need for heavy lifting and difficult shopping trips. Telehealth appointments can reduce travel to doctors' offices. Financial management apps help you stay on top of your money. Communication tools keep you connected with others without requiring In-person visits. Home modifications make your space safer and more functional. Grab bars in the bathroom, prevent falls. Better lighting reduces accidents. Organized storage makes things easier to access. Step stools and reaching tools help with high shelves. A first-floor bedroom eliminates stair climbing. Motion sensor lights prevent fumbling in the dark. These modifications aren't about giving up independence. They're about maintaining it by making your environment work for you. Services can supplement your abilities without replacing them. House cleaning services handle tasks that have become physically difficult. Yard care services manage outdoor maintenance. Meal delivery services provide nutrition without the effort of shopping and cooking every day. Handyman services take care of repairs you can't do yourself. Using these services isn't weakness, it's intelligent resource management. You're paying for help with specific tasks while maintaining control over your life and your space. Third, stay physically and mentally active. This is crucial for maintaining independence over time. The more you can do for yourself, the longer you can live independently. Physical decline and cognitive decline aren't inevitable. They're often the result of inactivity and disengagement. Physical activity doesn't have to mean intense exercise. It means moving your body regularly in ways that maintain strength, balance, and flexibility. Walking, stretching, gardening, dancing, swimming, tai chi, yoga, or whatever you enjoy and can do safely. The goal is consistency, not intensity. Regular moderate activity does more for your long-term health than sporadic intense exercise. Mental activity means keeping your brain engaged. Reading, puzzles, learning new things, social interaction, creative hobbies, and problem-solving all keep your mind sharp. Living alone actually provides natural mental stimulation because you have to manage everything yourself. You're constantly making decisions, solving problems, and staying organized. That's good for your brain. Stay socially engaged. This is mental and emotional activity, having conversations, maintaining friendships, participating in groups, volunteering, and staying connected with the world around you all contribute to mental sharpness and emotional well-being. Social isolation is the real danger, not living alone. Make sure you're getting regular, meaningful interaction with others, even if you're living independently. Fourth, be proactive about health management. This is non-negotiable for maintaining independence. You can't ignore health problems and hope they go away. You have to catch issues early and address them promptly. Keep up with regular checkups and screenings. Maintain relationships with healthcare providers who know you and your history. Take medications as prescribed. Pay attention to changes in your body and report them to your doctor. Don't tough it out or minimize symptoms. Address problems while they're small rather than waiting until they're serious. Manage chronic conditions carefully. If you have diabetes, high blood pressure, arthritis, or any other ongoing health issue, make controlling it a priority. These conditions can undermine your independence if they're not well managed. But with proper care, most chronic conditions can be controlled well enough that they don't significantly limit your ability to live independently. Make healthy lifestyle choices. You don't have to be perfect, but consistently making reasonably healthy choices about food, activity, sleep, and stress management will pay off in your ability to maintain independence. Every positive choice you make is an investment in your future capability. Fifth, protect yourself financially. Financial insecurity is one of the biggest threats to independence. If you can't afford to maintain your living situation, your independence is at risk. Take your finances seriously and make smart choices about money management. Live within your means. This might require hard choices about downsizing, reducing expenses, or adjusting your lifestyle. But it's better to make those choices proactively than to have them forced on you by crisis. Figure out what you can actually afford and structure your life accordingly. Protect yourself from financial exploitation. Be wary of anyone who shows excessive interest in your finances. Don't give anyone access to your accounts unless absolutely necessary, and even then, only to people you completely trust. Don't co-sign loans. Don't invest in ventures that sound too good to be true. Don't let people pressure you into financial decisions. If something feels off, it probably is. Work with professionals you trust. A good financial advisor, accountant, or estate planner can help you make smart decisions about your money and protect your interests. Make sure you understand what's happening with your finances. Don't sign anything you don't completely understand. Ask questions until things make sense. Your money is your independence. Guard it carefully. Sixth, maintain control over medical and legal decisions. As you age, it becomes increasingly important to have clear documentation of your wishes and plans in place for scenarios where you might not be able to speak for yourself. Create or update your advance directive. This document specifies what kind of medical care you want in various scenarios, particularly end-of-life situations. It ensures that your wishes are followed rather than leaving difficult decisions to family members who might not know what you want or who might have their own agendas. Establish a healthcare power of attorney. This designates someone to make medical decisions for you if you're unable to do so. Choose carefully. This should be someone who understands your values, respects your wishes, and will advocate for what you want rather than what they think you should want. Make sure they understand your preferences and have copies of your advance directive. Create or update your will and consider establishing a trust, if appropriate, for your situation. This ensures your assets go where you want them to go. It prevents family conflict and protects your wishes. It's also an act of love because it makes things easier for the people left behind. Establish a durable power of attorney for finances. This lets someone manage your finances if you become unable to do so. Again, choose very carefully. This person will have enormous power over your resources. It should be someone you trust completely and who has demonstrated financial responsibility and integrity. Review and update these documents regularly. Circumstances change. Relationships change. Your wishes might change. Don't create these documents once and forget about them. Make sure they reflect your current situation and desires. Having these things in place doesn't mean you're giving up control. It means you're maintaining control by making sure your wishes are known and will be followed, even in situations where you can't speak for yourself. This is taking responsibility for your life at the highest level. Now let's talk about what to do when people challenge your independence or try to pressure you into changing your living situation. This happens to almost every woman living alone at some point. Family members, friends, healthcare providers, or even strangers feel entitled to share their opinions and concerns. Here's how to handle it. First, recognize that their concerns usually say more about them than about you. When someone expresses worry about you living alone, it's often driven by their own fears, guilt, need for control, or discomfort with situations that don't match their worldview. It's rarely based on actual assessment of your capabilities or situation. Understanding this helps you not internalize their concerns as if they're objective facts about your life. Second, respond with calm confidence. Don't get defensive or angry, even though their interference might be frustrating. Defensiveness makes you seem uncertain. Anger can be dismissed as irrational. Instead, respond with quiet confidence. I appreciate your concern, but I'm managing well. I'm happy with my current situation. I'll reach out if I need help. State your position clearly and then disengage from debate. Third, don't justify or over-explain. You don't owe anyone a detailed defense of your choices. The more you explain, the more ammunition you give people to argue with you. Keep your responses brief and then change the subject or end the conversation. Your living situation isn't up for debate. Fourth, set clear boundaries. If someone repeatedly brings up concerns about your independence despite your reassurances, you need to set firmer boundaries. I've told you I'm fine. I need you to respect that and stop bringing this up. Your constant concern is actually causing me stress. I need you to trust that I can manage my own life. Be direct about what you need from them. Fifth, limit contact with people who won't respect your boundaries. If someone continues to pressure you, criticize your choices, or make you feel bad about your independence despite clear boundaries, you have every right to reduce or eliminate contact with them. Your peace of mind is more important than maintaining relationships with people who undermine you. Sixth, document your capability if necessary. In extreme cases where family members might try to legally challenge your independence, you might need documentation that you're competent to make your own decisions. This could include assessments from your doctor, evaluations from mental health professionals, or documentation of your daily functioning. This shouldn't be necessary in most cases, but if you're dealing with particularly controlling or problematic family members, it's good to be prepared. Seventh, know your rights. You have the legal right to make your own decisions unless a court has determined you're incompetent, which is a high bar that requires clear evidence of inability to manage your affairs. Nobody can force you to move or change your living situation just because they think it would be better. Nobody can take over your finances or medical decisions without your consent or a legal ruling. Knowing this gives you confidence to stand your ground. Eighth, seek outside support if needed. If family pressure becomes overwhelming, talk to a counselor, social worker, lawyer, or patient advocate who can help you navigate the situation and protect your rights. You're not alone in dealing with this. There are professionals who specialize in helping senior citizens maintain their independence against family interference. Let's address a sensitive topic: recognizing when you might actually need to change your living situation. Being empowered doesn't mean being unrealistic. There might come a time when living completely alone is no longer the best choice for your safety and well-being. The key is making that determination yourself, based on honest self-assessment, rather than giving in to external pressure. Signs that you might need to consider changes include repeated falls that you can't recover from independently, serious cognitive decline that impairs your judgment and safety, inability to manage basic self-care like eating, bathing, or taking medications correctly, isolation that's causing serious depression or mental health decline, financial crisis that makes maintaining your home impossible, or health conditions that require more monitoring or care than you can arrange in your current situation. Notice that these are serious, concrete problems, not vague concerns or worst-case scenario worries. Occasional forgetfulness doesn't mean you have serious cognitive decline. One fall doesn't mean you can't live independently. Difficulty with some tasks doesn't mean you can't manage your life. The standard should be, can you meet your basic needs safely? Can you make sound decisions about your well-being? Are you able to maintain a reasonable quality of life? If yes, then you can continue living independently. If no, then it's time to consider alternatives. Even if changes are needed, you still have choices. Independent living isn't the only option, and institutional care isn't the only alternative. There are many options between completely independent living and nursing home care. Assisted living facilities, senior housing communities, living with family under clear agreements that protect your autonomy, hiring live-in help, or moving to a more manageable living situation while maintaining your own household are all possibilities. The goal is finding the arrangement that best balances your needs for support, with your desire for autonomy and control. If you do need to make changes, you get to drive that process. You get to explore options, visit facilities or living situations, make decisions about what you're comfortable with, and maintain as much control as possible over the transition. Don't let anyone rush you or force you into situations you're not comfortable with. Take your time. Get all the information you need. Make the choice that feels right to you. And remember, needing support doesn't erase your value or your strength. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human and you're facing realities that everyone faces, eventually, if they live long enough. How you handle those transitions is what matters. You can maintain your dignity, your autonomy, and your sense of self, regardless of where or how you live. Let's talk about the deeper psychological and spiritual aspects of living alone in your senior years. There are profound lessons and growth opportunities that come with this experience that go beyond just managing practical challenges. Living alone as a senior woman is an opportunity to develop a deep relationship with yourself. For much of your life, you've probably defined yourself through relationships with others. You were someone's daughter, learning who you were supposed to be from your parents. You were someone's partner, compromising and adapting to maintain the relationship. You were someone's mother, pouring yourself into your children's needs and development. You were someone's employee or colleague, performing a role and meeting expectations. All of these relationships shaped you, but they also obscured you. You learned to see yourself through other people's eyes. You internalized their expectations. You shaped yourself to fit what others needed you to be. This isn't necessarily bad, it's how we develop as social beings. But it means that many women reach their senior years without ever having really known themselves as separate, autonomous individuals. Living alone gives you the chance to discover who you are when you're not performing for anyone. What do you actually like? What matters to you when nobody else's opinion counts? What brings you joy when you're not trying to please anyone? What kind of person are you when nobody is watching? These are profound questions, and living alone gives you the space to explore them honestly. This self-discovery can be uncomfortable at first. You might find that you don't know yourself as well as you thought. You might discover that some things you believed about yourself were actually just patterns you adopted to fit in or please others. You might realize that you've been living on autopilot, doing things because that's what you've always done, rather than because you actually want to do them. This realization can be destabilizing, but it's also liberating. Once you realize that so much of what you've been doing was performance rather than authentic expression, you're free to make different choices. You can shed the patterns that don't serve you. You can try new things without worrying about whether they fit your established identity. You can evolve and change without having to justify it to anyone. You can become more authentically yourself than you've ever been. This process of self-discovery and authentic living is deeply fulfilling. It's the difference between existing and truly living. It's the difference between going through the motions and being present in your own life. Living alone in your senior years isn't the end of your story. It's potentially the chapter where you finally become fully yourself. Living alone also offers the opportunity to develop a different relationship with solitude. Most people in our culture are afraid of being alone. They equate solitude with loneliness, emptiness, or failure. They fill every moment with activity, noise, or interaction to avoid facing themselves. They're uncomfortable with silence and stillness. They don't know how to be alone without feeling lonely. But solitude and loneliness are completely different experiences. Loneliness is a painful feeling of disconnection and lack of meaningful relationship. Solitude is the intentional experience of being alone that allows for reflection, rest, creativity, and inner peace. Loneliness is something that happens to you. Solitude is something you choose and cultivate. Learning to appreciate solitude is a gift that comes with living alone. You discover that being with yourself can be enjoyable. You learn to appreciate silence. You find peace in your own company. You develop an inner life that's rich and fulfilling, regardless of external circumstances. This doesn't mean you don't value connection with others. It means you're not desperate for it. It means you can be alone without feeling lonely. It means your well-being isn't entirely dependent on other people's availability or presence. This capacity for solitude is actually a sign of psychological health and maturity. It means you have a strong sense of self that doesn't require constant external validation. It means you've developed inner resources that sustain you. It means you're not running from yourself or from uncomfortable truths that emerge in quiet moments. You can sit with yourself, with your thoughts, with your feelings, without needing distraction or escape. Many spiritual traditions emphasize the importance of solitude for growth and wisdom. Hermits, monks, and mystics throughout history have withdrawn from society to develop deeper understanding and connection with themselves and with something larger than themselves. While you're not necessarily pursuing a spiritual practice, the principle is the same. Solitude creates space for depth that constant activity and interaction don't allow. In solitude, you can hear your own thoughts clearly. You can notice patterns in your emotions and reactions. You can reflect on your experiences and extract meaning from them. You can engage with big questions about meaning, purpose, and what matters without being influenced by others' opinions. You can develop wisdom that comes from genuine self-examination rather than accepting conventional wisdom without question. Living alone also teaches you about impermanence and acceptance. As you age, you're confronted with the reality that everything changes and nothing lasts forever. Your body changes, your energy levels shift, people in your life pass away. Capabilities you once took for granted might diminish. The world around you evolves in ways that sometimes feel alienating. Loss and change are constant companions. Living alone forces you to face these realities without distraction. There's no one to help you avoid thinking about aging, mortality, or loss. You can't hide behind caring for others or maintaining appearances. You have to look at your own aging process honestly. This can be painful, but it can also be profoundly maturing. Accepting impermanence doesn't mean becoming depressed or giving up. It means making peace with the reality that everything changes, including you. It means finding meaning and joy in the present moment rather than clinging to the past or fearing the future. It means appreciating what you have while you have it rather than taking it for granted. It means facing your own mortality with courage and wisdom rather than denial or terror. Many cultures that respect their elders recognize that one of the gifts of aging is wisdom about impermanence. Older people have experienced enough change and loss to understand that clinging to permanence is futile. They've learned to hold things lightly, to appreciate the moment, to find peace with what is rather than what was or what might be. This wisdom is valuable not just for you, but for younger generations who can learn from your example. Living alone as a senior woman also presents an opportunity to examine and heal your relationship with independence itself. Many women have complicated feelings about independence. You were probably raised with mixed messages. Be independent, but not too independent. Take care of yourself, but also be willing to rely on others. Be strong, but not intimidating. Be capable, but not threatening. These contradictory messages created internal conflict about how independent it's okay to be. Additionally, many women associate independence with negative experiences. Maybe you became independent because of difficult circumstances like divorce, widowhood, or abandonment rather than by choice. Maybe your independence came at a cost that made it feel more like burden than blessing. Maybe you learned to be independent because you couldn't rely on anyone else, which created resentment rather than pride. These associations can make independence feel like something you're forced to endure, rather than something you're choosing to embrace. Living alone in your senior years gives you the opportunity to reframe independence as empowerment rather than abandonment. You can choose to see your independence as strength rather than loneliness, as freedom rather than isolation, as autonomy rather than rejection. You can heal the wounds that made independence painful by experiencing it in a new context where it's genuinely serving your well-being rather than being forced on you by circumstances. This reframing requires conscious work. You have to challenge the negative narratives you've internalized about being alone. You have to actively look for the benefits rather than dwelling on the costs. You have to practice gratitude for the freedom and autonomy you have, rather than focusing on what you don't have. Over time, this practice can transform your relationship with independence from something you tolerate into something you genuinely value and protect. Finally, living alone as a senior woman offers the opportunity to examine what legacy you want to leave. When you're no longer defined by your roles as caregiver, partner, or employee, you can think more clearly about how you want to be remembered and what impact you want to have on the world around you. Legacy isn't just about grand gestures or leaving behind wealth. It's about the values you embody, the example you set, the wisdom you share, the kindness you show, and the difference you make in the lives you touch. Living independently as a senior woman is itself a legacy. You're showing that it's possible. You're demonstrating strength, capability, and self-sufficiency. You're challenging stereotypes and expanding possibilities for women who come after you. You can also be intentional about other aspects of your legacy. How do you want to spend your time and energy? What matters enough to you that you want to invest in it during these years? How can you contribute to your community, your family, or causes you care about? What wisdom have you gained that you want to pass on? What do you want people to remember about you? Living alone gives you the freedom to pursue legacy on your own terms, rather than having your time and energy consumed by others' needs and demands. You can volunteer for causes that matter to you. You can mentor younger women. You can write, create art, or document your experiences for future generations. You can be politically active or socially engaged. You can simply live in a way that demonstrates your values and sets an example worth following. Your legacy is being written every day through your choices and your actions. Living independently with dignity, courage, and joy is itself a powerful legacy that will influence how others think about aging, independence, and what's possible for women. We've covered an enormous amount of ground in this video, and if you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who values depth and truth over superficial reassurance. You're someone who's willing to look at difficult realities honestly, while also recognizing your own strength and capability. That takes courage, and I want you to know that I see that courage in you. Living alone as a woman over 65 is not the tragedy society wants you to believe it is. Yes, it comes with challenges. Every living situation does, but it also comes with profound gifts: autonomy, peace, freedom, growth opportunities, and the chance to finally live on your own terms after decades of living for others. Your independence isn't something to apologize for or hide. It's something to celebrate and protect. Society will continue to judge you. People will continue to express concern that's really about their own discomfort. Family members might continue to pressure you to change your living situation, but you know the truth now. You know that their concerns say more about them than about you. You know that you're not just surviving alone. You're potentially thriving in ways that wouldn't be possible in any other situation. You know that your independence is a superpower, not a weakness. Before you go, I want to remind you again to support this channel if this content resonated with you. Hit that like button so this video reaches more women who need this message. Drop a comment sharing your experience or your thoughts. Your voice matters and contributes to a community of empowered women supporting each other. Share this video with women in your life who might be struggling with judgment about their independence or questioning their own choices. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss content designed to empower and uplift you. And if you really want to support what we're doing here and help us continue creating in-depth, honest content like this, leave a super thanks. Every bit of support helps us reach more women and create more resources that make a real difference. I want you to walk away from this video with your head held high. You're doing something remarkable. You're living proof that women don't need to be defined by relationships or roles to have value and purpose. You're demonstrating that strength, capability, and independence aren't just for the young. You're showing the world that senior women can be powerful, autonomous, and thriving on their own terms. Don't let anyone diminish your achievement. Don't internalize society's ageist and sexist assumptions. Don't allow other people's discomfort with your independence to make you doubt yourself. You're not just okay, you're extraordinary. Every single day that you manage your life, solve your problems, make your choices, and maintain your autonomy, you're doing something that most people couldn't do. That's not something to minimize. That's something to be proud of. Your independence is your superpower. Own it, protect it, celebrate it, and never apologize for living your life on your own terms. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to look at uncomfortable truths. Thank you for being part of this community of strong, independent women who refuse to be limited by society's expectations. I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue exploring the psychology and empowerment strategies that help you live your most powerful life. Until then, remember, you're not alone in being alone. You're part of a growing community of women who have discovered that independence isn't isolation, it's liberation. Stand tall in that truth. You've earned it.